Welcome, everyone, to an episode of Trek Talk with Tech and Kirk. I'm TechMan16.
And I'm Strange Kirk.
So today we're going to be talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 3. We're gonna go back all the way to Episode 4 and go through Episode 8. But I want to start by talking about the various different plot segments that we currently have in the show, because there are so many, and they're crammed in so little time. So let me just give everybody kind of a flavor of what happened between Episodes 4 and Episodes 8. They're titled Forget Me Not, Die Trying, Scavengers, Unification 3, and this latest one, Episode 8, The Sanctuary. So, starting from Episode 4, we have a character arc for Adira, who didn't know that, or rather, she couldn't access all her memories as a Trill symbiote. She goes to Trill to find how to access her memories, and she was met with hostility because she's a human joined Trill. But eventually she shatters that barrier and eventually is able to access all the memories. However, she has the problem of seeing her past boyfriend, who was the previous Trill symbiote, at all times, which is different from symbiotes in the past, Deep Space Nine, and Next Generation, being able to access their memories on command. She is able to get them by Discovery to Starfleet headquarters, and is able then to help identify through complex algorithms where the burn originated from. We have an episode or character arc with Emperor Giorgio, where she goes from certified badass to all of a sudden having all sorts of mental breakdowns about some sort of incident that happened with either her son or some person that was very, very close to her, and she continues to have blackouts and eventually almost gets Burnham killed in an episode where they're trying to get Book out of an Emerald chain controlled world. And so far, something is happening with her mental and physical state where it'll get explored in the episodes to come. We've had a basically mini plot within mini plots of various people, including Detmer and Stamets, experiencing mental health issues, including post-traumatic stress disorder, where they continue to second guess themselves, to be unsure of their situations. They have issues, and somehow eventually they come to resolve and understand their problems with their friends. We have the overarching theme of the burn, which goes from being a very mysterious kind of event that basically crippled the Federation to nobody knows what it was, to then pivoting towards people in the Federation and Vulcan, now called Ni'Var, that had originated at the home planet of Ni'Var, to now that we've seen in Episode 8, a signal, a distress signal sent by a Federation starship in some nebula that had something to do with the cause of the burn. We want to get into that later. We've had a story arc for Book, the P90X space cowboy who rescues animals for sanctuaries. He returns to his home planet and reunites with his brother, I guess, and they help move some magic locusts back into the water so they can eat again. That was kind of cool. And Saru becomes captain and is struggling with his ability to become captain, and nothing more apparent than the awkwardness of him trying to his catchphrase. Like, Picard has engaged, Mike has hit it, he struggles throughout the episode, which is wonderful to see because it was funny. And then you have the story arc of Ensign Tilly. Tilly goes from an engineering ensign to first officer, skipping the entire chain of command because she's Tilly, because she's awesome. And then you have Michael Burnham that goes from being, I don't know where I belong, to I'm the first officer, to I'm demoted to science officer, to I'm the hope for the Federation in Unification 3. So there's a lot of stuff to cover, and here with me I got my friends Amorgin, Strange Kirk, and joining us for the first time today, Spirit Mind. How you guys doing today?
How's it going, Tech?
It's going good for me.
Cool. All right, so I really want to start with the burn because this is the season-long mystery that has encompassed the entirety of the season from the first episode, where because of the burn, the Federation fell apart. And so we have tidbits in these past 5 episodes. We have it went from nobody knows to it was localized at Vidar or Navarre, and then it was in some sort of nebula. And part of the episode that really deals with it was Unification 3, where there was a series of networks called SB19 that was supposed to do something with a new warp or a new way to travel, and somehow it failed, but it recorded all the data when the burn happened. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on that story arc, and what do you think? Where do you think it's going? But how do you think it's been mainly presented?
Well, let's not all talk at once. I would just first like to say that this whole burn thing is kind of like when you have an itch, but it's one of those itches that kind of translates to another part of your body. So you spend like an hour scratching your whole body trying to figure out what's going to kind of stop that itch. I wish we'd just find the spot and just get it over with, because this burn thing is just ridiculous. It's kind of like a splinter that won't come out. It's gone from the sublime to the ridiculous, and it's affecting the plot of the show to the point where, I mean, to me, the show's barely watchable as it is, but it's getting to the point where it's just so stupid, and they're so fixated on this thing that they're going to allow somebody who disobeyed a direct order and literally killed people to. At first, we're like, well, we don't care about the burn. We don't care. We're worried about what's going on now. And then I'm going to go kill some people. And then when I come back, I'm going to get demoted. But that's it. Like, that's all that's going to happen to me. And I'm not actually getting demoted. I'm just like losing my title. I'm still the chief science officer, but I'm just losing my first officer's title. And then all of a sudden, in the very next episode, it's, oh, we can't trust you to put a pin back in a cup, but we want you to go represent us at this planet, and it's very important. And now all of a sudden, the burn is important to us. So it's just, I understand that it's part of the story, and they want to figure out what's going on. They want to figure out what happened. And, it seems to be the focal point of this entire season. But it's much ado about nothing, because it's affecting everything else within the show. Because, as you mentioned earlier, they've crammed so much crap into this season, and so many these overlaying storylines with everybody, and they're all interwoven poorly, but they're all interwoven. And the fixations on this burn, I at this point, because it's been going on so long, I don't care anymore. I don't care. I'm watching it to know what happens, and I'm watching it to watch the other storylines that are going on. And at this point, they've made such a big deal about it that it's just not even, I don't even pay attention to it anymore. There's so many far-fetched ideas that they're presenting. There's so many, they bounce back and forth, and they don't actually explain any of their logic behind it, as in the other Star Trek, shows, and even movies. If they had some sort of a scientific thing, they would have that one person that would play the devil's advocate, like from the background, and be like, what? How the hell does that happen? And then they would have this panel discussion about possibilities and how it would actually work and why it works. But this one, it works. Just know that it happened and shut up. Don't question us. We're going to keep moving forward. End rant.
Yeah. I suppose the upside of it is we're after seeing episode 8, and we're finally getting close to the burn, to what it's all about. That's the good news. the bad news, the downside is that like you said, Kirk, it's just been dragged out that fucking much that it's starting to wear a bit thin at this stage. I had said to the guys, I don't know if you were there at the stage when episode 8 was over and we were watching it. I get this feeling that a lot of what Discovery has done in this season, and possibly even in last season, but certainly in this season, this could have been done in a single episode of any of the other shows. It's like I want to reference an episode of the Next Generation, of the original series, but pick any good episode of the original series, the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and so on. It feels as though they've got a concept and it's just been milked and milked. The skeleton is there and they've fleshed it out with a whole load of stuff and dragged it out over an entire season. And the episode I want to reference, I can't even remember the name of it in the original series, I watched it there recently, was one where an entire culture was based around a 500-year war, and computers were running this war. Mathematical certainties were the result of a computer algorithm, all of this kind of thing, and they were coming up with this mathematical outcome that determined that X amount of people had been killed in this theoretical attack. The crew of the Enterprise arrive down. They discover this. They challenge it. All of that. There. This isn't even one of the remarkable episodes of the original series. It's just one of the standard episodes. But yet, it's such a huge concept to consider that a culture might have developed and they were fighting this theoretical war, and that people were literally walking voluntarily into an incineration chamber. That kind of idea seems to be the sort of thing that if that was thrown out on the table for the writers of Discovery, they'd make an entire bloody season out of it. And they'd drag it out until the point of where people were sick of it. But take any of the standout episodes that were done of any of the previous shows, and it just feels like they got a good idea and they're just going to make hay while the sun shines. And let's stick 10 episodes on this theme. We'll flesh it all out with emotional crap from a variety of different characters. We'll throw in our woke agenda to tick all of those boxes and try to get new viewers and try to keep people happy and please a load of new viewers and run with the current theme of the day. And in the process, we'll just shit on canon. We'll rehash this idea of the needs of the many or outweigh the needs of the few, and we'll just shit on that. We'll come back to this idea, I'm sure, but things like okay, we're going to make Ensign Tilly first officer. I seen a very, very good comment from somebody who said, like, can you imagine going back to the Next Generation? Wesley Crusher saved the crew of the Enterprise on at least one occasion, maybe more. Can you imagine, on account of that and on account of his heroic deeds, that Wesley Crusher all of a sudden is just made first officer of the Enterprise? This is the sort of thing we're talking about.
Hold that point, because I want to get back to that point, and that's exactly my thought about it, Ensign Tilly and Wesley Crusher. But I really want to focus on the burn. So, Spirit, you got any? What do you think about the presentation of the burn?
I personally don't like it because it's like correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't several different species have other means of warp transportation than dilithium? For instance, the Romulans come to mind. The Borg had different, and it seems ridiculous. It really does.
So you hit on a very good point, and that's kind of what I want to get into a discussion about, is the presentation of this phenomenon. I was talking to Amorgin earlier offline, and I referenced the episode "The Void" in Star Trek Voyager, where Voyager gets lost into this donut place where there's no stars, and they have to create an alliance of races to work together to cooperate and get out. And it was one episode. People may like it, people may not like it, but the point of the episode was cooperation, sharing of resources, breeds ways of getting things done. You have a task, you work with a lot of people, get out there and get it done. And the presentation of how the burn has gone throughout the series, which is it's nebulous and there's all sorts of theories, to now it's localized to a single planet, to now it's localized to a nebula with a particular song that triggered the event potentially. What I would have expected in a Star Trek setting would be Discovery comes to the future. The Federation has fallen apart. The Federation has become jaded. There's strings attached, as Rin and Dorian has talked about in episode 8, where he's like, I've never done dealings with the Federation where there weren't strings attached. I would have liked to see the presentation of this burn event. Yes, we want to find what caused it, show it wasn't the Federation's fault, but at the same time, do the Voyager thing. We're going around to all these different planets, including Earth, to say, we are bringing back the spirit of cooperation. We are here to help try and put things together. And it may not work. It's certainly, I can't imagine, with the exception of maybe Trill, there hasn't been a single incident where, okay, we might think of rejoining the Federation. There was some of that good talk in Unification 3 with the Chancellor of Navarre or whatever. And that is like what I would expect throughout the entire season, as you're trying to figure out what is this singular event. And the problem that I foresee is it's overexposed, kind of like the Borg and Voyager. You're overexposing it with way too many details. There's way more questions than people have answers to, and it's just this annoying concept of lithium-powered matter-antimatter reactions went boom. Romulans used artificial quantum singularities, so they wouldn't have been affected at all. The Borg, you're right, Spirit, would have used transwarp conduit technology that would put them out of phase, so they wouldn't have been affected at all. They don't use antimatter. You had quantum slipstream technology. That wasn't affected by warp, and so that part just wouldn't make sense.
The whole thing's janky because you look at now, you come here and they're like, oh well, all the dilithium exploded, so everybody that was using dilithium, their ships went boom or their reactors went boom. Okay, well, the Romulans are kind of, let's face it, they're kind of assholes, and so if that happened, don't you think when you show up, it's like this desolate wasteland of a galaxy, and there's this criminal syndicate that's running the show? I highly doubt it. I'm pretty sure that the Romulan government would have seen the opportunity to assert itself. And I think that in reality, somebody who was not using the matter-antimatter reaction, when you come to the future, they probably would have been running the show. It wouldn't be some Orion syndicate or something like that. It's just, it wouldn't be that way. But because, again, coming back to what Amorgin said, because they took this season and they laid out, here's all the social agendas and these other things that we want to touch on, and here's how they're going to work. Now, let's figure out a storyline to put into it so we can cram it all in. It doesn't work, right? So they didn't think about it.
At least if they had given us an episode where they discussed these issues, like why the Romulans were out of the game, why the Borg were out of the game. Tell us that 700 years into the future or whatever, there was another big war with the Borg and we defeated them and they're gone, or something like that. Because if the Borg are still there, I'm afraid we're all getting fucking assimilated if the galaxy is the way that it's presented in season 3.
Since the beginning, since we met the Borg, they were chomping at the bit to assimilate Earth. Don't you think they would have seized the opportunity?
Especially with all warp drive collapsing.
It's a Borg wet dream, fuck.
Well, the Romulans too.
So let's move on from the burn. I think we could talk about it all day, but I want to move on to more of the character development. And I just want to ask you guys: can you name all the Burge officers in Discovery?
Nope.
Let's see. You got Detmer, Saru. You've got alien face chick. You've got suave guy with the nice fade. You've got I don't know.
All right. So the only ones I know.
No idea.
Black girl is Owasakan.
That's right.
The black dude is Bryce.
I actually like him. He's kind of funny.
Saru, Tilly, Detmer, and everybody else. I don't know. I don't know the white girl's name. I don't know the Asian dude's name.
Oh, the white chick, the Lieutenant Hayes or something, maybe. I can't remember. I might just be making shit up.
Next question.
The bridge crew certainly aren't the central grouping like we would have seen in any other Star Trek. You know,
right,
it's not about their.
Next question. Can you name the chain of command? Like who's captain, first officer, and then the lieutenants after that? Who's the chain of command?
There isn't one.
Nope. I know Saru and Tilly now.
Yeah. You used to be Saru, Burnham, and then who's next?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Whoever that day was.
Whoever
was the nicest.
Obviously, that blondie chick. She's sitting in the chair regular enough. So obviously, she's third.
Right. So how does Tilly leapfrog everybody?
Are you trying to make me leave this podcast right now?
Well,
we know why Tilly leapfrogged everybody, because some asshole has sat down and went, let's make the overweight redhead fucking that we put in season 1 as representative of a minority. Let's give her. We've forgotten about her for a while, so let's give her a role front and center. That's why, like.
So. Yeah, going back to your point, Amorgin, you mentioned that appointing Tilly first officer of the USS Discovery is akin to the Next Generation appointing Wesley Crusher to USS Enterprise.
And in fairness, that was a comment I seen somewhere else. Like, that's not my own idea, to just we disclaimer there, but I thought it was spot on when I read it.
Well, I was thinking the same thing too, because Crusher was an acting ensign, and he did help save the Enterprise, especially during that episode where everybody's addicted to the game, and he
highly intelligent, way beyond the capacity of his peer group, all of that kind of stuff. You know, same sort of character that Tilly is.
So, us leaving aside the, kind of agenda of checking all the boxes and making sure we're all progressive. How do you think we just watched episode 8. It was the first episode where she was first officer. How do you think she did in the role?
In fairness, we have said before that this crew is like a crew of Barclays, right? So if the Enterprise was Picard, a crew of Barclays, and Wesley Crusher, I probably would give Wesley Crusher the number 1 spot. Like,
that's true. So to be fair to Lieutenant Barclay, he was a brilliant guy. He just had anxiety issues, and now that Discovery's in the future, dealing with a whole new circumstance. The reason this comment was made is because the breakdown episode in episode 4, where it seemed like everybody was having a mental breakdown except for Hugh Culber, because he came back from the dead. No problem there. It seemed like everybody was having an issue somehow. And so this was very reminiscent of Reg Barclay, who had issues, anxiety, and performance and stuff. And so now we're like, okay. somebody has to be in control, somebody has to be in command, but there isn't anybody. Everybody's just like, oh my God, we have problems. And that's why I would say, like, Discovery is a room full of Barclays.
Yep.
Yep.
Not that anything's wrong with Barclay. I mean, he was a great character, but it's just like everybody.
I think I'd trust Howlin' Mad Murdoch on the bridge a bit more though.
Well, no, you know, another thing
That's an 18 reference for you younger kids.
Another thing that kind of I'm wondering about is because if you remember that the chick with the bionicle eye or whatever, the enhancement, Etmer don't have any issues now, but there for a while it seemed like she did.
No. Well, I suppose she was allowed to let loose on her issues there by fighting a super star destroyer and
the super star destroyer. Yeah, no. They revisited her issues in the episode when they were like, "I need a failsafe," and she was like, "You are the failsafe," or whatever stuff. And then she had her 30-second heart-to-heart during a space battle where there were explosions going off, and let's just take a pause from this battle and we're going to have a heart-to-heart and then I'm going to feel better about life.
I think what happened was she got shell-shocked as she crashed into the ice in the first episode, and then effectively she shell-shocked herself out of it while she was piloting the Millennium Falcon against the Star Destroyer.
Yeah, in fairness, it was probably more of a Millennium Falcon buzz than an X-Wing, all right, yeah.
I mean, because, like, I've seen this theme before. I'm going to take it off computer and do totally manual. This is how I learned to fly. Let's do it.
I've got 10% shields.
Yeah, all of a sudden Yoda makes a cameo.
Use the Force.
You guys didn't see the Yoda? Kirk brought up a great point. You didn't see the Yoda? I mean, Yoda was blue in this case, but
Oh God! Yeah. With the cat right next to him, sitting in his lap. True. And she looked over to him and said, "I just need you to be brave a few more minutes."
Then the biggest secret reveal: the Emerald Chain is running out of dilithium. Ooh.
Why the fuck didn't he share that as soon as he got in the bloody ship? He's running away from these wankers. Like, they kept him prisoner. They're coming after him. He's after getting powerful friends and allies, and he doesn't want to tell them until the last minute. What the fuck? The first thing he's doing, he's spilling the beans on that and saying, these bastards are after me, but here's their weakness. That's the first thing you do. Fuck.
Let's pivot and talk about Philippa Georgiou, the certified badass reduced to a person with mental health up the ass.
I still think Philippa is one of the better characters, even with all the flaws that they've written into her. I think she's one of the characters that when she comes on screen, I'm hopeful that I'm going to see something here that just makes a little bit more sense and that's a little bit more no nonsense.
I have a question, and maybe you guys have an answer. How does Philippa Georgiou know about holograms and how to dismantle their appearance when holograms didn't appear until like Next Generation Voyager?
Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose we can presume that, in the Terran universe, they had some sort of other knowledge. But, this is part of the flaw of this show is that things aren't tied together and you're left guessing. So your guess is as good as mine when it comes to any of that stuff.
Because the EMH was introduced in Voyager, reinforced in Deep Space Nine when they were running concurrently. And then, then it was in the future. So how did Georgiou, even though she's
my presumption is that somehow the Terrans and, because they had stories and stuff and because they've been going over for centuries now, they would have known about it from stories crossing the universe back and forth. That's my presumption, but honestly, it feels like there's stuff going on while the camera's not running. You know what I mean?
I understand that, but it breaks continuity.
Yeah, it
And that
does. It breaks it
there,
big time.
there's a lot of, and we alluded to this in the past episode when we were talking about season 3 or episode 3. There's a lot of continuity breaks, and some of it doesn't jive with really hardcore Trek fans, and some of it just like, all right, whatever, just move on.
Yeah, like I don't like getting spoon-fed information. I like a little bit of mystery. I like a little bit of intrigue. You know, I want to be left hanging on the end of my seat going, oh, wow, what is that about, you know? But that's not what this is doing. Maybe that's what they intend us to do. Maybe they're leaving us to join the dots and fill in the gaps ourselves, and you've got a brain, use it, kind of thing. Maybe that's the way they're thinking of it, but it's not. That's not what it's doing. What it seems like is that they're adding up dots and they're skipping a load of important, relevant information. Like how, instead of some of these fucking stupid emotional scenes that we're seeing, why wouldn't we see, like, I don't know, Giorgio hacking a computer somewhere for 30 seconds and learning some of the weaknesses of the holograms, like, just to make that seem like, oh, Giorgio, you're a badass bitch and I like you. We need somebody like you. We've got a crew full of Barclays, and our first officer's a female Wesley Crusher, and we need a Philippa Giorgio, and we're not getting it.
So I want to bring up the one character that seemed like a Section 31-esque character with the one who was interrogating her. I just don't like when there's such giant disconnects between episodes, like between consecutive episodes. And this guy seemed like he was a Section 31 agent. Section 31 still exists. And it felt like he was programming her with his glasses so she'd remember some sort of event or whatever. However, it ties in with the burn, and he's talking about how there's multiple theories of the burn and nobody really knows. And in 2 episodes later, it's like Navarre had to live with the knowledge that the burn was caused here because of SB-19, and that causes great pain and causes us to leave the Federation. And you're like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, what happened?
And where's all of these other theories? How many ships have they got? We've got a couple of dozen ships left still,
right.
And there's more theories than ships. Where's all of the other theories? Are we led to believe now that all of the other theories all of a sudden have just been dropped because Burnham's gone and visited Navarre?
Right. So it just boggles my mind. Like, where? I don't know. It just
and
seems
don't get me started on that whole fucking Unification 3 thing. I wish Jansen was here because I wanted to have this argument with him on air. Well, maybe we'll do it later on down the line, but we'll revisit it because it's a big one. Because the cheek of these bastards, the fucking neck on them, to turn around and say that Spock was the man that he was, even to suggest that Spock was the man that he was because of Burnham, is an absolute and utter fucking disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace, and the people that wrote that should be fired on the spot and not allowed to see the light of day. They shouldn't be allowed a fucking pen or a fucking computer in front of them again. It's a disgrace, and the people that okayed that should never be allowed to utter the word Star Trek again. An utter disgrace, an utter insult to the whole legacy of Leonard Nimoy. It's a fucking disgrace in my book.
All right, now we're going to transition into Michael Burnham's character. She goes from saved the entire living populace of the universe to I lost my way. I don't know if I fit into Star Trek or Starfleet anymore, and I like being on my own. To okay, I'm in Starfleet again, but I'm just going to go on unsanctioned missions. Now I'm going to be demoted. and now I really fit in with this crew. And I'm
Yeah, and
so sad.
let's throw in a few tears. You know, fuck.
I
Can't
mean,
stand
look,
her character. I feel sorry for the actress having to be fucking asked to do this because she can do facial expressions really well as an actress. She delivers her facial expressions really, really well. She conveys a message without needing lines, right? And she's just constantly used for, like, as though she's got a face like a slap child arse, you know what I mean? It's just as though it's shocking. Oh my God, like, and the tears, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, you know, like, okay, show us that she's got an emotional side once or twice, but don't make it the fucking running theme of the character. Like, what are you at? I feel
Especially with all
that
the
girl has.
training that she's had growing up. They're supposed to be masters of emotion, you know.
I mean, I did like her mother calling her out on her bullshit. That was kind of fun. But I do think that Sonequa Martin Green is a very good actress, and I've said this all along. You know, she's just been given a very bad hand by the writers to try and play Spock's adoptive sister, who was raised on Vulcan, but I mean, she's got to be black. She's got to be cool black, right? So she's got to have the braids, and then she's got to be hyper emotional in every situation. You know, I remember after Voyager reading why people hate Janeway, and a lot of the comments by people was very misogynistic because people can't handle women being in powerful positions, and that still exists today. I mean, that hasn't gone away. People still feel that women shouldn't be in high levels of office in government or military or whatever, and that still exists today. And I think part of the reason is that women get a bad rap for this. However, you know, if you want to try and convey leadership from a woman, you know, there are plenty of scenes in Voyager where you had B'Elanna Torres, Janeway, and Seven of Nine, all strong personalities fighting with one another. You know, saying, this is a chain of command. I'm going to do it this way because this needs to get done. That shows leadership. That shows initiative. That shows I need to get stuff done. You need to follow my command. But all these emotional scenes with Burnham is like, well, this is why this misogyny exists, because
Well, when it comes to strong females in sci-fi roles, I'm going to just detract from Star Trek a wee bit. There was a sci-fi series done, and I've mentioned this before, with what's her face from Battlestar Galactica.
Starbuck.
Okay. Yeah. And it was an absolute and utter disgrace. Now, I know my criticism of that would be labelled as, oh, you can't handle a strong woman in a role like that and blah, blah, blah. But my counter-argument to that would be Hilary Swank done a lead female role in a very similar position where she was the commander of a ship going into space and all that kind of thing and had to deal with all of these issues with her crew. And Hilary Swank played that role far, far better, dealt with the issues as a professional commander would do so, whereas the one that was done by the other doll, and she produced it, I think, as well, it was just, again, this woke fucking agenda to challenge. It was like almost like we need to put men down. If you're a white male, you need to be subjugated, you know, and it's an absolute insult. Whereas you take the Hilary Swank role and just kind of superimpose one or the other or juxtapose them. You'll see that a strong female role can be done if it's done authentically instead of pressing a fucking agenda. You know, I had no problem with Janeway. My girlfriend at the time hated her, and you know, she hated me watching Voyager because she couldn't stand Janeway. I didn't mind Janeway, but my female partner hated her. You know. So,
well, again, it just goes back to there's a fair bit of misogyny that exists because some people can't handle a woman being in a powerful position. But if you're a woman in a powerful position whose lives depend on you, you can't be having an emotional breakdown all the time.
Yeah, like, where's the professionalism in this crew? Like we said, they're a fucking crowd of Barclays.
Look, it's not that. It's like, yes, you could be an emotional person. We're humans. We're all emotional people. I understand that. But in the face of adversity, in the face of, people depending on you, you're going to have a cry in the middle. And you're like, okay, these are my feelings.
You're going to dither about whether your commitments lie with your crew or not.
Right, I don't know if I belong here.
Just send her off with Buck and do a spin-off for Burnham and let the Discovery crew, let us see a crew that mans this ship, a central core group, and I've said it before, Tig Notaro should be part of that and all because she offers me, I know some people don't like her, but for me she offers that cynical kind of quip, kind of one-liner shit, like, that you'd have got from certain characters in Star Trek in the past, and give us a core group that we can follow their adventures every week. And let Burnham and the rest of them go off and do that somewhere else in some spin-off.
Yep. Oh, right, my whole thing is you don't hardly see anything besides the science officers in Burnham.
Why the fuck is that? Yeah, why is Stamets not been asked to take the chair once in a while?
He's too busy. He's too busy being dependent on for the spore drive.
Yeah, I'm sure when they're not fucking using the spore drive, he can go up and command the ship while Saru and Burnham or whoever else goes away off on an away mission.
All right, we've talked about that to death. I want to pivot to something that is little talked about, and that is the Discovery computer. Now, it is evolving because of the sphere data into what will eventually become Zora, which is the AI, or sentient AI of the ship, as seen in the Short Treks episode Calypso. And she's suggesting to Saru things for the crew to watch, all these Charlie Chaplin type movies, so that the crew gets together and has a grand old time and not feel so sad. That scene kind of dropped. It was there in like episode 4, and then all of a sudden, nothing.
Yep, that's like that engineer that they saved.
Tig Notaro.
We've seen her like twice, and then she's no longer there.
They're trying to cram in so much.
Yep.
All right. We could talk about this all day, but let's wrap it up. You guys got any final thoughts on the last 4 or 5
I wanted
episodes?
to, because it's been a while from we done this, and just when I was listening to your kind of synopsis of the different episodes and the thing as we went along, I didn't realize it had been so long. You talked about this. It's been. We didn't cover the whole Trill planet. Did we do an episode on that?
We did not. We talked about it offline, but go ahead.
We talked about it offline. And I wanted to raise a couple of points on that. I found it seriously insulting about how these people were referring to the symbiote as a squid, right? And if I was a Trill, I'd be highly insulted at these people who are not Trill, and they've no experience with this, and and the whole Riker thing. I had this kind of feeling that because Jonathan Frakes had directed that episode or whatever, and to see his name come up on the screen, and that he was one of the only humans that had ever, had a symbiote, and all of that kind of stuff. I thought this might be good, and then I found these humans and whatever are walking along, jovially taking the piss out of the squid, and I just thought for people who are supposed to be progressive and it's all about acceptance and all that, that's quite derogatory language, and very off the cuff, and I was a little bit insulted with that, and then to see that the Trill had become this kind of, they got into this kind of frame of mind where they didn't trust anybody. It was an insult to have this non-Trill with a symbiote. It was like they were ready to murder this girl, Adira. They were ready to execute her for this and kill her to take the symbiote out and save it. Her life did not matter. And it was an insult to their whole culture and way of life that this human would have one of their symbiotes, right? And then they just switched it by the end of it. And not only was it acceptable then for Adira to be in their sacred bloody fucking pools, but they all just stood back and said, oh, Burnham, you jump in there as well. They were ready to kill this girl, for fuck's sake, just by the virtue of the fact that she had a bloody symbiote. And now they're just letting Burnham just jump on into the sacred pools. I thought it was an absolute and utter disgrace. I thought it was an insult. Like, if you know, to that whole idea as well. This group of writers and this show is constantly insulting everything that has gone before it, in my book. And people like Sonika Martin Green and even Jonathan Frakes, I think they're trying to get with the program. I think they're, like, these guys all want work and they want paid work, and they want to stay with the Star Trek franchise and they want to do all of that. And I don't blame any of them. I don't blame a job an actor for taking on a role and doing their best job, or I don't blame Frakes for going and trying to direct a script that is just a piece of shit, because he's trying to stay with the franchise. And, it's his generation that's going to carry this through, because the older generation from the original series are all dying out. But they're insulting everything that's beautiful about Star Trek, in my book.
Yeah, the Trill thing, that's a... it's nice to see some continuity and some callback to Deep Space Nine and try to expand on the Trill culture. I still don't understand how the Trill population was decimated by the burn. That never made sense to me because of the sheer magnitude of the burn and the amount of Trill and join Trill that are available. I guess nobody ever made public that 50% of all Trill are compatible for joining. I guess that never came out. But yeah, the whole desecration of the sacred pools by humans. And everybody's like, oh no, Burnham, you're the person. You have to go there. You have to be the guiding force for Adira. Is just, I don't know. It was weird. And there's enough tidbits that call back to, Trek that we're used to, but there's enough nonsense they put in there that it just feels wrong.
Well, you just like Amorgin said, the people there's practically everybody in the show is a nobody. I mean, and no offense to them. I mean, a lot of the acting is very good, but think about it. The vast majority of the people in this show, you have never seen or heard in anything. They have they did extensive work as waitress number 4 in one episode of some obscure show that was made in Canada. And so I get it. You want work, you want to make money, and I'm behind it. And with Jonathan Frakes, there's no doubt in my mind that, he'll do anything, for somebody to pay him. Because again, what else has he done? Nothing. So you can't blame him for it. Because, I mean, if that's how you make your money, I mean, I guess I'd sell my soul to the devil if I needed to make some scratch too. But we also need to call it what it is. And it's these people that are involved, like Jonathan Frakes. In actuality, Jonathan Frakes should be the one that should put his foot down and go, hey man, this have you guys actually read this drollery? This is shit. This isn't going to work, man. This isn't cool. People aren't going to like it. But because, you waive the money, oh, yeah, man, it's the greatest script I've ever read, and I haven't done anything significant since, 1993 or whatever, the last Star Trek movie, or 2001 or whatever. So
I think part of what's happening there as well, though, in fairness to Frakes, I think a little bit of what's happening, I've watched a fair bit of stuff around the time of when the handover happened and all the bullshit that went on in the studios and producers and all of that at the time when they come up with the Next Generation in the first place. And Frakes' character and Picard and all of that they were all newbies coming in, nobody knew knew who they were, and they were ditching Kirk and Spock and all, which was that was an absolute disgrace to most of the Trek fans that were around of that generation. How can you get rid of Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock? You can't, and they done it. It was an absolute travesty to most Trek fans at that time, and they overcame that. They overcame that because they were given a chance and they proved themselves. And it's widely known that the first couple of seasons of The Next Generation went through its own fair share of difficulty and all of that there. And in fairness to Frakes, I think he's looking at a new generation. I think he's putting himself in the shoes of Shatner and Nimoy and all of these guys when he came along as a young up-and-coming actor that was stepping into huge shoes. And I think he's putting himself in that role, and he's looking at a new generation coming through, and he's trying to be as gracious to a new generation of writers and actors as the older generation were to him when he came along. And I think he's a little bit lost in that. Shatner and Nimoy and all of that, they sat down and they discussed the issues that affected them in the roles that they played and dealing with studios and all of that kind of stuff. And they treated each other with respect as fellow actors, dealing with these money-grabbing fucking arseholes, right? I think he's trying to do the same thing with the new guys that are coming along.
And I get that, but my point I was making, I understand that it's not going to be exactly what we like, right? Our generation is used to X. This is going to be Y, and I understand that. But my thing is the script itself. As someone who has directed a lot, as someone who has written a lot, as a veteran in the Star Trek universe, but also overlaying that, a veteran director, he's directed a crap ton of things in the Star Trek universe. He's written a lot, helped write a lot of things in the Star Trek universe. Don't you think that he, as a professional, would look at it and go, guys, this is shit? I'm not talking about...
I want Frakes, yeah, don't get me wrong, I want Frakes. Frakes has positioned himself nowadays in the modern generation, modern world, as he's Mr. Star Trek, right? I want Frakes to be Mr. Star Trek. I want Frakes to be the guy that flies the flag, and represents everything that we love about Star Trek. Sadly, though, this is his career. He needs to position himself for posterity and all of that there. He has a legacy to uphold and all of that, and he's just not doing it. And I agree completely. I would love to see him put the foot down and challenge them. Maybe we should lobby Jonathan Frakes. Maybe we should be tweeting Jonathan Frakes and saying, man, we fucking love you. Please, please, please sort these crowd of wankers out.
Again, it's not so much... The Next Generation had 3 seasons of the original Star Trek as canon to work with. There wasn't a lot there in terms of content. 3 seasons, there was 70-something episodes total? Well, now J.J. Abrams, Alex Kurtzman, and whoever the hell runs the show at CBS, you have some 800 episodes of stuff, of canon. Not to mention games. Not to mention other books, not to mention all these various continuity problems that existed, whatever, right? And you have that, and you're trying to appease to a new audience, but also try to bring in old Trek fans. And that becomes a problem because now there's so much. The universe is now so much bigger. There's so much more established. So trying to navigate in that kind of world gets really tough. Now, if they would have started out in the future, like Discovery, if they would have started out in the future with new aliens that they called Klingons, with all this new technology, with all this new stuff, I think that would have been much better received by Trek fans. And I think that would give Frakes and everybody even more latitude to boldly go where no self-identifying individual has gone before.
I find myself I want to fight Alex Kurtzman. I'm getting older now, and I'm not as fit as I used to be. But I'll tell you what, if Kurtzman would take me up on the offer to get into the ring for a few, I can't box worth a shite, but I'll get in the ring with that fucker, and I'll get myself fit. I'll go into the gym for 6 months and get myself fit just to take him on in a fight. As long as the winner gets to decide the direction of Star Trek going forward.
Look, okay, all right. In defense of Kurtzman, without Kurtzman and Abrams, we wouldn't have new Star Trek content. So just because a lot of the stuff we say is negative doesn't mean it's all negative, because there's stuff we can talk about.
I beg to differ because if the Orville came into existence because ideas around New Trek were turned down in favor of this shit, we had guys like Tarantino willing to come in and do stuff on it. If I'm not mistaken, you know, I'm damn sure, even though Tarantino would have done his own style and his own thing, I am damn sure we would be sitting watching something amazing and good along the lines of what we're seeing with The Mandalorian, for example. It's different. It's not exactly what we would have seen with Star Wars, but it's done fucking well. And I'm pretty sure if the likes of Tarantino had to come in, I believe his idea was to base it on the kind of the Western sort of story, or no, sorry, it wasn't. It was the gangster time when Kirk and Spock went back to the gangster. It was like a whole society that built up around like 1920s gangsters.
Piece of the action.
Yeah, I would love to see a fucking series done on that world by Tarantino. It would be bloody fucking amazing.
Just because you mentioned, you're talking about, well, we wouldn't have new content. Well, as an STFC player, you should know better that just because something's new content doesn't mean that it should have been made.
I don't discount that, but I'm just saying there's a conversation that's being talked about instead of the echo chamber of who's better, Kirk or Picard. No, man, it's one way or the Jane way. Like, we're not having those discussions anymore, right? We're talking about something else that is considered Star Trek. And yes, Orville is so much better than anything that Kurtzman or Abrams ever put out for anything.
Well, let me say this, because this podcast does have an Instagram, and we have like a grand whopping total of like 30 people on the server that follow it or whatever. But anyway, I sometimes go on the CBS. I follow the Star Trek page, and I follow the Star Trek things. I try to keep up with it. And one thing I saw, go on there and somebody said, hey, what do you think about episode whatever? And there were a lot of people saying, it was great. And one guy says, I don't really care for it. It seems like they're way too pushy with a social agenda, and I don't really feel like it's Star Trek. And this was the resonating response from, I don't know, probably 20, 30 different people. They all said, well, you're just a POS because you refuse to like the show. First of all, let's break that down. If someone likes it, either someone likes it or they don't. When you use a term like you refuse to like it, that insinuates that you're refusing to accept whatever I'm trying to shove down your throat.
Yeah, that's fucking fascism.
That's exactly what that is. You refuse. And now, these are
Can you link that shit in the description below this podcast?
I will try to find that. It was probably about a month or two ago, but I'm sure that I can go back and find that particular Instagram post. That it was this idea that, well, you refuse to accept it. Well, aren't you the same people? And again, we're not going to get political here, so I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But I'm using it as an example. Are you the same people who would turn around and preach acceptance and people doing what they want to do, but you're saying that, well, you have to like this because we say you have to like it?
Yeah, it's groupthink.
Yeah, well, that basically to me shows lack of intelligence, first of all, and extreme weak-mindedness. And so, again, these are the people that this show is attracting. These are the types of people, and it's right there. The proof is in the well.
Yeah, but I've seen this, and I keep referencing this all the bloody times. I'm a huge Dark Tower fan, and they made a film of the Dark Tower, and constantly Data Walker, Data Holmes, whatever, refers to the gunslinger in that as tall and ugly. He's a snowflake. She uses racial slurs about him being a white man, and he's constantly referred to as his blue bombardier eyes and all of this kind of thing. And all of a sudden, they go and they make a movie about this. They change a load of shit around it, and the gunslinger's a black dude. And it's like, what the fuck? There's no way that this guy, if you read the bloody books, there's no way he can be a black dude, because a black woman with schizophrenia is constant, when her other personality comes to the surface, she's constantly slating him for being an ugly white guy.
And that takes away from the story. Fuck?
It just shits on all over the story. But I think King and all the guys were actually being clever and ahead of their time, because I think what they done was they gave the rights to all of these woke agenda, social justice warrior types that were taking over Hollywood and the filmmaking business in general that are established now. And he handed over the rights and said, go away and make whatever the fuck you want out of that. And then when it comes to the time that we're actually going to make the real shit, you can't argue with us because we've ticked that box. At least that's what I hope that they've done. I think it's I'm hoping it's a very clever move, but that was that's a few years ago now, and that was some of the first early signs that I started to see this shit happening, and I'm seeing it everywhere now. You know.
All right. Enough of that. So, Kirk,
you cut that shit out if you want.
Any final thoughts about episodes 4 through 8 that you have that we haven't already addressed?
Again, I'm always the big negative, and I'm always the one that's shitting all over it, and rightfully so. But there are some good things to come out of it. Some things that I wanted to see, because everybody likes to throw around this term called representation. First of all, I feel like the guy in what was it, Princess Bride? They keep throwing around these terms where he goes, inconceivable, and he looks at him and he goes, you keep using this word. I don't think it means what you think it means. And so I feel like people like to throw these little buzzwords around, but to use that as someone who suffers from, certain mental diagnoses, it was nice to see the quote-unquote representation of some of the things that it seems like they did do some good research. It's very hard to portray that, because the thing is, you can't accurately act out a PTSD breakdown, an episode of a PTSD episode, or some sort of an anxiety attack or anything like that. You can't act that out if you've never experienced it. You can try your best, but you don't know unless you were there. So in that aspect, obviously there's some things where it's a little funny, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, that's just kind of fruity, dude. Like, it's all over the place, and it's really weird, and I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, they gave it the old college try, and I think they did the best they could with what they had. And I did enjoy seeing that being brought to the light and it being normalized, because it is such a big issue these days that people have some assumption, and let's remember, you can't spell the word assumption without the word ass. They have this assumption of what something is because it's the stereotype. If somebody has PTSD, you better be careful and don't make them mad or they'll kill you. It's not really what it is at all. Or anxiety, these people, they're big pansies. They're really not. Some of the bravest people I know have just almost crippling anxiety, but they're able to overcome that because they have to. And so it was nice seeing that. Some of the acting I enjoyed. Michael Burnham, the actress playing her, was this Sonica Martin Green. You can tell she has very limited acting experience, because her array of reactions, her kind of pocketbook of reactions and emotions are very, very limited. So she, every time it's something serious, she does this thing where she's almost whispering, and her eyes are really wide, and she's whispering, and so that's her reaction to everything, and that's just from an acting perspective. She needs to probably get some acting classes, and so as I said, limited stuff. A lot of these people, they don't have much experience, but I think the quality of the acting in and of itself is pretty good. So I do want to say that. I want to give the props there. The special effects are pretty cool. I like it. It's not overly done. It's not like a Transformers movie where there's like explosions every 5 seconds and everything explodes. If you throw a cardboard box, it explodes. So I like the special effects. But at this point, I'm kind of just ready for the season to be over. Let's just get on with it so we can kind of get on with our lives.
Spirit, you got anything to add?
Going over stuff, and a lot of it's been covered.
What?
I don't. Looks like everything
All
I
right.
had got covered.
All right, cool. Well, thanks everybody for joining me today. I think this was fun. May have ran a little too long, but hey, we got our opinions out there. And if you like it, keep on watching. If not, I really hope we get Jansen back here because I want to see Jansen and Amorgin go at it over Unification 3. So thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate it. This has been Trek Talk with Tech and Kirk. I'm TechMan16.
And I hate this show.
And we'll see you guys next time.